Hello, hello, hello. On this episode of the Sanibel Captiva Guide podcast, I'm delighted to bring you one of the key figures on the road to recovery of Sanibel Island, the Honourable Mayor Holly Smith.
What day are we on now?
Okay, you know, and some people can't stand to hear this, but
I love it.
I look forward to saying today we are on day 75
Okay.
of our Ian recovery.
Really?
And
Has it been that?
where we have been, I think I saw you all probably within the first week, as
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
recall,
for sure. Yeah,
going
for sure.
over and where we have been from and where we are now. I'm not
Amazing.
sure anyone would have
Never.
seen it coming. I pinch myself.
I do too.
But we also know we've got a long road ahead.
Yeah.
So give us a little rundown of a summary of where Sanibel is today compared with day 1, day 2, day 3. I mean, just a brief roundup. Obviously,
Sure.
it's impossible.
You know, day 0, you know, was basically September 28th. That was the day the storm came through. And as we were sitting, 11 miles away, feeling hopeless and helpless of what was going on, that was one of the most difficult days as we were, I had put out Facebook alerts as we did prior to the storm in preparation. So we can even go prior to that, as
Yeah.
our preparation to the storm actually came when we found out it was just the invest. Sanibel's always been very proactive on our hurricane preparedness. But then, we called for a voluntary evacuation. The city of Sanibel never called for a mandatory evacuation. Actually, the county did on the Tuesday morning in preparation for the storm. And there's distinctions with that. We could not call a mandatory evacuation because until you have some place to send people to.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
we were in contact with the county. They called that evacuation. We all evacuated.
And where did you go? Where was your?
I was with the city. So we were at
okay.
the Bell Tower,
Oh,
the Crown
that's right.
Colony at
Okay.
Bell Tower. We had contracted with them for that, as we had in previous storms. So
And then you ended
we were
up there for
there.
a long time.
I ended up there. I was only there for a few days.
Okay, but actually the meetings were held there and everything
yes. Yep,
subsequently.
the city of Sanibel, and actually they still have they still have space there for
Gotcha.
some of the operations.
And it's
okay.
actually held in a room called the Sanibel Room.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, the meeting
So
rooms
our
are all named like Captiva, Sanibel.
Sanibel. So the meeting rooms were at the Sanibel room. Now we're in different places now.
Oh,
So
really?
we're
Okay.
down on Lee Street. The county gave us space, and we
Oh,
have some
perfect.
offices there. And then now our commission meetings, some of our subcommittee meetings, those Big Arts has opened their home to us as well. We just
fantastic.
recently had a FEMA forum there.
Yes, I watched that.
So
So
we're,
informative.
we are getting back to the island.
Oh, great. Right. Because
Slowly.
the city actual physical buildings are not able to be moved into just yet. Is that the reason?
That's correct. Although our city building, City Hall, is in pretty good shape. The lower areas, we don't have, ADA accessibility. There's also been some air quality issues that need
Gotcha.
to be taken care of before
Okay.
we can get the people back in.
Right. Got it.
So going back to huge differences in the first week after the storm. Obviously, we were out there and just going out there. I
Well,
think-
we were going out by boat because at that point the causeway was
Yeah.
non-accessible, inaccessible,
Unaccessible,
whatever.
And then today, if you're going over, pretty much all the roads are cleared. Is the bridge finished on
East-
Gulf?
Yes.
No, East Periwinkle.
Yeah, we were driving over
yeah,
that this
Periwinkle.
weekend. So
Really?
yeah,
Perfect.
so I was excited about that. And going back to when we started, as you know, we're talking to the governor, and it's about about ferry service.
Right.
And then it was saying, okay, people, you can get there by boat. Although it wasn't the ideal way, we needed to make sure that we let our citizens know they could get out there, they could look, they could try to assess their property. We actually allowed our citizens to get back to Sanibel Island quicker than we did with Charlie with a bridge, even
Really?
though it
Wow.
was boating access.
Okay.
Wow.
Our
Interesting.
citizens were given the green light to say, get out there and look. We knew. I was out there on Friday, so Wednesday
Wednesday
the
storm.
search and rescue, and our first boots on the ground with Public Works, Sanibel Captiva Fire and Rescue, our police department. They did the first go look
Right.
to get out there and start to do that first push. And then when they came back, we had a meeting with Dana Souza, our city manager, and we got together and he said, you know what, we need all of council to get out there tomorrow. So we were able to we all went out on the boat to take a look at the limited access we had at that point.
Yeah.
It was like Mad Max. It was a war zone.
Yeah. What was your first impression when you stepped foot on the?
It's hard to even put it in words.
Yeah, I bet.
Especially finding out that the bridge had been impacted.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I first found out about it, it was at the lobby at the bell tower at about 4:30 in the morning.
Wow.
And this resident, because none of us were sleeping for days, we'd catch a wink, but it was you're on this adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
And someone came up to me and said, Mayor, have you seen this? And I see this grainy picture from Tampa. The Tampa Tribune, and I looked at them and I said, I can't verify that. I don't know. And then a half an hour later, I got a video clip from one of my relatives from New York.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, have you seen this? And it was this flyover in the light. We hadn't seen it. We're all in our bubble.
Right.
So we had not seen that yet. And I go up to our room 301, which was our new comms center. And I've got the city manager, the city attorney, our police chief, and we're literally looking on our phone at this flyover and seeing those breaches, a drone flyover.
I still have chills when you talk about it because it was.
It was.
Wow.
Just a quick message before we get back to the show. We put a ton of effort into bringing you quality content, so if you would like to help us share our love of the islands, here are several easy ways. Firstly, you can support us on Patreon. You could purchase an island souvenir from our Etsy store. You can metaphorically buy us a coffee, which is an easy way to donate a couple of bucks.
Don't you prefer tea?
Well, I do, kind of. Also, like and subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with all things Sanibel and Captiva. And finally, show some love to our sponsors. Let them know we sent you. All the links are in the description below. Now, back to the episode.
It was a moment in time that we will never forget, any of us, because then we realized what was
the enormity
potentially ahead of us and the magnitude of that. So when I got to the island, we got a little bit. We got to, they did a push on Periwinkle, but we couldn't go into any, the side streets. You couldn't get in anywhere. And then we actually were able to go down Tarpon Bay Road a little bit, and then to the east or to the west, you couldn't go very far at all. There were condo complexes literally in the road. There was debris, the muck, the slippery muck. As you guys, you
my
saw
gosh.
that.
You would not believe how slippery that.
No, it
how
was
was
glass.
it possibly? It was
Right.
glass.
And people were, when we got back, we were saying to people, we were honest with what we saw.
Yeah.
It's not the time to go out. It's not safe. It's not habitable. And I remember seeing this comment written, well, how does she know she's living in a hotel? No. From day 3, I was out there.
Right.
And I've been out there every day to see that progress. We all have.
Right. And at that point, there was no electricity, no
water.
Wi-Fi. No water. So,
nothing. No Wi-Fi. Yeah, that was the least.
Right.
I mean,
I know, exactly.
There was no
but
access.
no communication.
There was no power grid. When I was able to meet with the governor the following Tuesday and meet with he and his chief of staff, and I said, we're opening our island because that next day was the day we were going to say, okay, you can get out there on your boats.
Yeah.
You can get out there any way you can, and I wanted to get out there for that. And I said to the governor, we need to see this. You need to see this from the ground because the pictures.
No.
Yeah, the pictures did
They
absolutely
don't because
no justice.
there was a site that you could go on and you could see an overhead picture. And so I know a lot of people, like Rachel Pierce, the artist, she said she was able to see that her building's still standing.
Studio.
And she
Our
was like,
studio.
hooray, in our studio. But it wasn't until you were actually standing in front of it and
We had
realizing.
somebody even looking at the building itself and reporting back that the window to our landlord that's saying that the building didn't look that bad. And I'm like, you have to be kidding me. You open the door and literally the couch is upside down on top of filing cabinets.
They must have just driven past or something and not actually looked in the window.
So it's incredible. Some of the obviously some of the structures were completely demolished, but some were just demolished internally.
What you saw, and this is something that we're trying to let people know, is as we were getting that that clearing done as Crowder Gulf, who's our debris contracted debris hauler and actually has been for decades.
Yeah.
What we were telling people, because they'd see a neighborhood where the push had gone through, so the road was clear, and then they'd see the houses, and they'd say, the houses look fine. Well, what they didn't see with that house had been inundated for hours and hours of 8 to 10 to 12 to 14 foot water.
Yeah.
So it didn't paint, and that's what we were trying to portray every time
Right.
we went out
Which
there.
I think you did a great job of that.
Yeah, you did.
P.S. I love that your little lighthouse.
Yeah, there we go.
I know. He was, or she, whatever, the lighthouse was at my office, and that was one thing I was able to save, and
Yeah.
it makes that's special to me.
Makes us feel good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Max was going out there, right after, as soon as we were able to go out there, and people were calling. Max was doing drone services, trying to show people their properties, and it was quite amazing because at the time that you're saying, there's no need to go out there, people are feeling like, oh, if I could just know what's coming or what's my way or what. It gave a lot of closure to people to know what their places were, but it also made you understand it's a futile effort to actually get out there. You could probably tell the story about Max. You had somebody.
Yeah, I think I went in 42 houses in the 2 weeks after the storm. All people that couldn't get down here, and if they could, they would have to find a place to stay, find a captain to get them out there, and then probably walk there. So it would.
Yeah, that was another thing that people forgot. There was no transportation, was there, to get to your house?
No, and first Max, thank you, because I know when I saw you on the boat, and you were telling me what you were able to do, and I know how much that helped the community, the people that you helped. Just getting in there to let them see. It might have been the hardest thing that they've seen, but at least they knew what they were looking at. And my concern is we still have a lot of people that haven't even seen their properties.
I know.
That can get over there. So, you were one of those responders that really helped. Yeah. In answer to your question, I remember one of the meetings that one of the ladies just said, and bless her heart, we're all under this great amount of stress. Mm-hmm. And she said, but you're going to have to pick me up. Can we call a taxi? And I'm coming down the road with a bandana looking like Mad Max and, watching all these vehicles just tear up and down the road. And then, some of the proprietors of the bike shops and stuff, they said, go in, take whatever you need.
Yep.
We had to bike around. My husband and my son, we got an electric bike.
Right.
And they.
Oh, you're lucky you had the electric.
Yeah, they got an electric
flooded.
bike right off, and my son literally, they rigged it where we had the basket behind it, and my son was riding in the back when they were allowed to come back on. So and carrying another trailer behind
That's
him.
perfect.
Yeah.
So everybody had to do what they needed to do until we could get that next step, which was saying, okay, we're going to allow some barge service to come over. Get that private barge service. Here are the access points. So every day, watching the port being built. We literally built a port.
That's incredible, yeah. Is that going to be something that's going to stay for the future in case something happens again or no?
So that is a great question. And I always hate to say that's a great question because that makes people think like you don't have an answer
Right.
or you're thinking about it. That we just put out our priorities for the legislative session. And one of those priorities is making sure that we have somewhat of a permanent structure that'll come into play. Because these are the things that you learn. I can remember having a conversation with one of the past administration when some citizens were saying, what is the plan for this? What is the plan for this? A, B, and C. And I remember one of the comments was, well, if the bridge goes out, what do we really have to go back to anyway?
Right.
And you know what? We know what we have to go back to. But now we're learning. We're building some of this airplane because this is going to prove to be probably one of the top disasters in our history. So we're learning these things on how we can do it differently.
And those small
this
problems,
is one of the items.
Yeah,
So great for you to bring that up.
Come to light is like it's one thing getting a fishing charter captain with a 6-pack license and a small boat to wedge his nose up on the beach so people can jump off, compared to a semi-truck being able to get on an island. It's a completely different ballgame, isn't it? It's huge.
It totally is. Or looking, we were able to secure a company to take us back and forth. One that we knew, and now we're going to know. Okay, this is part of our pre-disaster plan every year to have those contracts in place to do that.
That's great.
So we can, maybe even have it more accessible to more people once that first is safety, first is search and rescue. And unfortunately, we had to go through and we had some fatalities.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that we needed to make sure that, the roads are somewhat passable to get that push to get people in, and then allow them to get on, which we did very quickly. But now we can look at that and say, okay, these are the lessons that we learn going forward.
Right.
And you always learn a
Oh,
lesson.
sure.
for
Right.
sure.
Many of them.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then fast forward to the Causeway opening. I mean, could you believe? Was it 3 weeks?
It was
What was it,
less-
19
That was our
days?
trivia
20
question last
days.
week. I can't
20
remember.
days, I think.
I think it was day
It was
19.
19.
was 19.
Okay.
So let me just give you a little backstory
I'd
on
love that.
because it was really, it was so impactful to me. I had a day that you can only write in a history book. So the governor was speaking over at Lakes Park.
Which Governor DeSantis.
Yes, Governor DeSantis was over speaking at Lakes Park, and he had been speaking because let's remember, all of Southwest Florida
Right.
felt devastation.
Just not Sanibel.
Yeah, so he was so many places. It was like, where's Waldo? That man. I swear there must be 3 of them for how many places he goes to. But he was at that meeting, and I heard about it. And then I heard people talking about Sanibel, but they hadn't been there. They didn't know from the ground. And they were doing a great job of saying what they thought they needed. I got in my car and I drove over, and I found his chief of staff, James, and I said, I need to talk to the governor. I'm Holly Smith. I'm the mayor of Sanibel, and we had worked together before on with the office through bills and things that I know were memorable for the state of Florida. But I said, I need some time. I need one-on-one. And basically I said, I'm not leaving till I get it. And I was able to meet with the governor, with Casey DeSantis, with Byron Donalds, and Jesse Perdone, who's on Byron's staff. And we sat down and had a one-on-one for 30 minutes.
Wow.
And I talked to the governor about, what was happening on the ground. And I said, we need to get out there to see, because like you all know, unless you see it,
Right.
the pictures don't do justice. And this was Tuesday, and I said, can we go now? And that's not something
Right, they can't really just-
you're not able to do that. And I said, we're opening the Causeway tomorrow, not the Causeway, excuse me, we're opening for our residents to be able to get on by boat. They can land wherever they want. And I guess I thought there were going to be more coming on, and I didn't want, the governor did not want any sort of a disruption with the people getting
Right.
there.
Gotcha.
So they called me back a few hours later, and they said, can you meet us at Page Field at 8:30 in the morning? We're going to Chinook over. And so I was on the Chinook with the
Wow.
governor, his general, one of his chief of staff. This wasn't a media visit. This was him coming and seeing. There's some other staff members as well. And so we Chinooked
And where did
over.
they- where did you land at-
Because we had film of Chinooks going over
Yeah.
from here. This is
Where'd you
between-
land the
We
Chinook?
landed at the Sanibel School.
At the
Sanibel
Sanibel
School.
School.
And can I tell you, when we landed, I didn't know where we were.
Really?
It was all
I-
disorienting because
It was.
no landmarks.
Nope. And then I saw our chief and our deputy chief that were there, and I'm thinking, well, why are they here? And then I said, where are we? They're like, we're on Sanibel. Literally. I mean, it was just I hadn't been to that part of the island. So we immediately get into 3 Humvees. And
This is a movie, I think.
It is a movie. And we have this tour of where we could go. And as we're going up Sandcap Road, and I don't know how far you all went up Sandcap Road.
Yeah, I made it all the way up.
You did.
Yeah.
So what was clearly evident was every single electrical pole was snapped. Thought it was interesting on one side of the road.
Right.
So it was the Gulf side of the road, and the governor is a man of action, and he's taking this all in, not just taking it in. I'm talking to his general. I'm like, bah, 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 bah. And basically, he knew at that point the amount of devastation. Not that he didn't before, but that on the ground. We drove around. We drove as far as we could, and as we got back, loading up on the Chinook. As we get back, he stopped and we talked for a few minutes, and he said, we got to get that bridge done.
Really?
We've got to get, because the conversation that the city manager and myself and the governor had previously had was thinking this bridge is going to be out for months. Who, really
Originally, your first estimate was a year.
I thought
everyone
2
would
years.
have.
Yeah.
So he just looked and he said, "You were right. Seeing it on the ground, not I was right, but seeing those conditions on the ground." Realized the massive devastation and what we had ahead of us. And he said, we've got to get that bridge done. So I think that was on a Wednesday. By Friday, he had gotten the red tape out of the way. FDOT was in charge of getting this done. And we had a temporary bridge either 4 or 5 days after that to get those power trucks across.
With great pictures of
And it wasn't
50
even
FPL
you
trucks
call it a temporary bridge, but we left here by boat to film it, and although it's a temporary bridge, it's not a temporary bridge. I mean, it's tarmac, it's paved, and it's like, how did they do it in that short of a time?
Amazing.
Even the FDOT, all the agencies were there. They were like, we did it. We can't believe. And then 19 days when we were able to let the pass holders come over. I mean, nothing short of miraculous, but I can tell you, when you believe you can get something done and you don't just use the words and you put them in action like the governor did, things get done.
Yeah,
and
incredible.
That really, we need to look at that and say, that's what we can do on our island. That's what our community is going to do.
Keep believing.
You get it, you just...
Was any of that the Army Corps of Engineers, or was it all the Florida Department of Transportation?
That was FDOT and other partners that were on that. Army Corps of Engineers, there was some questions on that, but it's my understanding with talking to Colonel Booth that they were here on other missions for the area, because I've been with him a couple of times since as well.
Right.
And then
Tell me about riding on a Chinook. Is it massive? Is it like riding in a house?
So you get earplugs.
Okay.
It is huge. So here it's, the pilot, myself, the governor, his general, and 2 other individuals. But then out of the end of the Chinook, it's open with 2 armed military.
Really?
And it was really something. It's very, very loud. So, it doesn't allow for too much conversation, although we tried. And then, just even getting in the Humvees, I'm like, am I allowed to take a photo of being in? Because this is our history. Mm-hmm. This is a new history for us. Mm-hmm. And what they did to get there, to assess, and then the brains getting together and saying, you know what, now we are in mission. Mm-hmm. Because this really was and is a military mission. Not so much, I can say now a little bit, but now the things have been put in place to get us where we are today. And it really was a military mission in many ways. And the 2 things I've heard is, I can't believe the amount of devastation on that island. Many people that came from many other devastated areas to work have not seen that level. And then the process and the progress and how everybody came together to work to move this forward. And that's something we need to continue to make sure we impress and push upon. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. And speaking of that, every Tuesday now you're giving updates.
We're doing the
and
updates.
How can people find that?
They can go on. It's through our Facebook. But they don't have to be a Facebook member to join in. They can go to mysanibel.com, and then there's directions on how to tune into that. And we're having, hundreds of people participate. And we still have new people that come into the audience. More people, I think, are starting to get on the island.
Because you can actually physically go to the meeting as well.
Oh, we want to make sure that people, if they're in town and they can make it, that we make it accessible to them as well.
And sometimes there's you can ask questions.
Always a question and answer. If you see me looking at my phone, a lot of time I'll get text questions, but I always encourage people, we're all in this together. So, we want to know what the thoughts are, what the progress is, where some of the stumbling blocks are. If they're not getting a certain question answered, if we can't answer it, then we make sure that we get it back to them.
Right. You always say, give me your email address and we'll try to find out.
They have my phone number. Right. Everyone has my phone number. 239-270-1725.
Okay.
Wow,
excellent.
that's transparency for you. I've got a question for you.
Sure.
This is a voluntary position.
It is.
Are you nuts?
And when did so you became mayor in what day? And
So this is my second year as mayor.
Okay.
So we appoint from within. It's not an elected mayor position. I came onto council in 2017. Prior to that, I was on planning commission for almost 10 years. I grew up in a family of volunteerism. I'm lucky to give back.
No, I'm
And-
joking. I said it tongue in cheek, but I just.
Oh, I know you
could
did,
Could
but-
you imagine at the start of this year where you're becoming mayor of an island of a population of
6,700,
6,700, yeah.
And then you end up coming in the middle of one of the biggest catastrophes the country's seen, I would say.
But even on top of that, how about the city manager who just started
He just
like
started
a
a
month
few
or
days
so
before,
ago?
yeah.
So I came on to council in 2017 in December. What
What
happened in
happened after that?
2018?
Exactly.
Yeah. So fish kill, loathsome,
That's right.
red tide.
Yeah.
So
I see a
but,
correlation
yeah,
here.
we had that. Then COVID.
Yes.
So we had 3 council members new council members that were voted in during a pandemic, and then we go from that to our city manager giving a. I remember she'd called me and said I would like to meet with you by phone at 8:55 on Wednesday morning, May 5th, and I said, well, on Tuesday I
Interesting,
saw her
right.
and I've got a chance to chat. Anything she know? Well, and then she had
She
let
dro-
me know.
And this
of
is
the-
Judy's mom, right?
Yes.
Who was the manager for how long?
20 years.
20
Yeah,
years. So she
So-
obviously knew everything inside and out, and she.
Of course. And so, with that, we knew pretty quickly, I think I was, let's see, was I mayor then? I might have been mayor. No, I might not have been mayor. I'll have to go back and look at the date. Yes, I was. I was
Okay.
when she gave that notice because
Yeah.
I became mayor March 16th.
Okay.
2
I
years
think it was
ago.
a special day. Was it your mom's birthday or something? I was there
Yeah,
when you
look
were
at you. Yeah.
when you were elected, and I took and you
So-
you gave a really emotional speech. And it was special.
It was extremely special. So, my mom was actually a select woman, the first woman select woman in the town I grew up in Maine, and then she ascended to the seat of chair, which was mayor. Certainly, anyone that would have, any of my high school friends would have said, Holly. So this was never a path I even knew I was ever going to be on. So when I was on that day, March 16th, it would have been my mom's 90th birthday on that day and that year. And I knew she was watching out and cheering me on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
So
was a
thank
great-
you. That's really,
Yeah.
that's nice of you.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so here we are. Here we are with this. And
What's your real job?
so I'm actually a hotelier.
Yes.
So my husband and I, we have 2 properties. We have one in Cape Coral and one in Fort Myers. And basically, I've been with my husband 37 years. I hope I'm with him 37 more. God bless
Sure,
him.
you will be.
But he understands my dedication when I step up to something. So he has pretty much taken over. Usually, I was operating one. He was, working on with the other one. And in the last 2 years, I've pretty much, fully dedicated. As you said, we have a new city manager that's been a year on the job. The city manager search was pretty intense. We had 95 candidates. So we have been in transition in different ways ever since I've come on to
That's
council
incredible.
and our council members. But you know what? We've got a great council.
Yeah.
Our city
Yeah.
manager, I think, has done absolutely
Amazing.
a phenomenal
Yes,
job.
I agree.
And we can be so proud of that vote every day that he
Yeah.
steps forward on his commitment to this island and the relationships he has and is building.
Yeah.
He's quite a man, quite a
Yeah,
leader.
he's very
Amazing.
impressive.
And
very
how
impressive.
did you actually end up coming to Sanibel originally?
So I moved down here in '88. And I was a real estate appraiser for 20 years before I was in the hotel business.
really?
So
Okay.
my expertise was planning and zoning, understanding what the codes were. So I saw a niche on Sanibel. So I specialized on understanding Sanibel and Captiva and North Captiva. Those were the only three places that I took work from because I realized how complex they were for appraising, especially Sanibel with the Sanibel plan and the codes. Roy Gibson was an amazing mentor to me, as was Jimmy Jordan, our planning director, in teaching me everything about that island to do my job because the valuations change depending on where you are. So I was an appraiser first out there. I have 2 boys, Zane and Peyton.
Okay, which
So,
Max
yeah,
is a good
Max
friend
went-
of
I
Peyton.
grew up with
Yep.
Peyton. Yep.
Yep, sure did.
Yeah.
And played lacrosse many years together.
That's true.
So I saw the school. And when you're on the outside of Sanibel looking in, I think many people have this conception and misconception that it is just this elite tourism island.
Right.
But really what it is a community. It's a community with so many different demographics, and it's not just the wealthy. It's the families. It's the older community. And I saw this community that reminded me of the town in Maine, and I knew I wanted to live there.
Gotcha.
So we moved over to Sanibel. We bought our land in 1997. When the kids might have been about 3 and 5 or 5 and 7, and so they started out at the Sanibel
So
school.
they went all the way
They
through.
did. So
Ended up going to Fort Myers High.
yeah, I had
guess.
one go to Fort Myers High. The
Okay.
other went to Bishop
Oh,
Verot
okay, so-
and played against each other in lacrosse.
Ah.
Oh, I bet
Yeah.
that was
I
weird.
didn't know that.
Remember
yeah.
that, Max?
And
Yeah,
that
of
was such a
course.
huge rivalry too
Oh,
between
and
Bishop
one was
and
a
Fort Myers.
goalie, and one was the lead attack for Bishop
Oh,
Verot.
right, yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh
So
my
they said,
gosh.
"Who do you cheer for?" I said, "Both."
Yes.
Yeah.
Green.
So anyway,
Yeah.
that's how I
Okay.
made my way to Sanibel
Right.
and started volunteering and working. So I've always done both. It's not. I'm an aide.
You're used to being
personality.
busy.
I am used to being busy.
So the planning department, that's a volunteer position as well?
The planning commission.
The planning commission.
Every position outside of the staff are volunteer positions.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, they are. Very proud of that. I think you really have a different dedication when you're committed to not being paid for it.
Right, that's true.
And
yeah,
I think we're one of the very few municipalities in the state of Florida that are volunteer based, and I really wouldn't do it any other way. I'm lucky.
Yeah.
I'm lucky to be able to give back.
Yeah, so you have like the historical committee, there's the vegetation committee, there's all
Planning
kind-
commission,
Yeah.
contractor review. I
Yeah.
mean, we've got several recreation scholarship fund, and I think what our city manager, what we had planned to do is kind of look at those and streamline those. And then Ian came.
Right.
So, yeah. So and then there's Ian.
Oh, geez.
Shout out to Roy Gibson, a good family friend of ours.
Yes,
and-
we love Roy.
Yeah, Roy's a great guy.
And
Great guy.
when I say
And Edgar.
And a
oh,
guy,
yeah.
yeah, they are dear friends of mine first.
Yeah.
But Roy, I can tell you, when I came on, that man taught me so much. So,
Yeah.
he's
the real
he's
deal.
an icon, and the institutional knowledge that he has for Sanibel is at this point really second to none.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible guys. Incredible
Absolutely.
guys.
Sorry we
wow.
lost him when
I
we
know.
did.
Yeah, I know.
But retirement is
Hang up
good.
your
I was
boots.
going to
Yeah,
say,
we-
we didn't lose him.
No, we
right,
didn't.
he
No,
did-
and he's
right.
still extremely active in so many ways. I know he's on the,
The
library
library board.
board and still giving. He's a phone call away if I've
Yeah.
got questions and any of staff. And we've got new staff and but not a new direction. And I think people have to understand that the Sanibel
Yeah.
plan is the core of what we
Still.
do.
Can
So-
describe just quickly what the Sanibel plan is to people that don't know what that is.
Well, basically, it's our guiding document on what Sanibel is, how it can be developed, how it can't be developed. When you look around all the other municipalities that don't have the restrictions that we do, you can see why it's so special. I mean, there were some very bold forefathers and mothers that said, you know what,
Amazing.
we don't want what we see coming.
Yeah.
And Naples is great, Marco's great, Fort Myers' beach is great. But these dedicated individuals say, this is not what we see. We are a conservation island.
Right.
And these are the codes that we want to fall within. And I think that's what makes us so special
Yeah.
around the world.
Basically
because
living in harmony with nature.
Yeah, it is. And we've been 50 years upholding that Sanibel plan. And I hope that's generations to come, because you don't see that around
Right.
the world. 70% conservation land. We realize that it's not the easiest place to build. It's not the easiest place to get your permits, but they're there for a reason. Our code works, and our dedication to what our island should be, and I hope always shall be.
I was going to
is so
say, because
important.
I'm sure people at this point are worried that we might veer off that plan because of all the rebuilding that has to be done. But I think that you're going to stay steadfast.
Is there going to be height changes? I mean, obviously, the obvious thing that buildings are going to have to be built higher, and we also obviously understand that there's a cap on how high you can build a building on Sanibel. So, is that all going to be re-looked at in the future? Or?
Well, I think what we did even prior to Ian, we did a disaster rebuild ordinance. So we for our resort housing district. So as you all know, basically most of our resort housing district, East Gulf, Middle Gulf, West Gulf, has a long time to rebuild, and it's going to be extremely complicated. And you have to look at the 50% rule, so which is complicated. I won't go too far into that, but basically, a whole condominium association, they have to get an appraisal done, and then they have to go through their insurance. But what our rebuild said was, with whatever you had pre-disaster, you're able to rebuild it. It might be in a different footprint, but it will have to come up to flood elevation.
Gotcha.
It will have to come up to current flood. So all of those things we're going to be looking at pretty intently post-Ian, what we can do better. But as far as changing what our plan is, height restrictions and things of that nature, we're really that's going to be a difficult one for any of us to even consider. And I don't want to name any certain projects, but some of the projects that were the older projects that had the ground level properties within them that were completely forward of the coastal construction control line. Some of them were off their foundation, and all of those are going to be have to be looked at. And then you have to look at with the rest of the project. Okay, well, you had a building here, and our building was the first one out. I mean, there's so many things to look at.
It's a tough thing to go.
But the core of what we are,
I was going to say, is
as
still
long
gonna
as
be
I have blood in my veins,
good.
it rings true.
I know that. Good.
And that is one of the biggest fears I have, because that could potentially change with 3 votes. So we've been able to make sure for 50, it'll be coming up on 50 years in 2024, that we have held fast to what we are, and I hope that we hold fast to that.
And the whole reason that Sanibel became a city in 1974 was that reason that Lee County wanted to come out. And so I've heard they had plans to put like 90,000 dwellings on Sanibel. And so you said the forefathers and foremothers said, hold on. Heck no, we're not doing it.
It was a significant density increase.
Yeah.
And we just looked at this and said, this is, we, meaning they, said, this isn't what we want. And I'm sure, I'm sure it was, kind of like, the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
Can't you see those groups kind of, going at each other?
Yes.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we protected our island. We protected this world-loved natural resource that we need to continue to protect in every way we can.
Good.
But I also look out there and I say, you know what? The new building codes work.
Yeah,
And
they
you can
definitely
see,
prove that for sure.
you
can see it's there in black and white.
Yeah,
You
go
see-
to Island Inn,
Right.
as you have, I'm sure,
Yeah,
and you see
yeah.
that new building code, and
Yeah.
and the older properties, unfortunately, were basically, many of them were actually swept away.
Swept
So
off
those new
completely off their
building codes,
foundations,
and you can configure something on those sites. We already have.
There's
I'm sure we
living
have
proof.
sales
Yeah.
and people kind of circling. But I hope those vultures that are circling understand how tough we are.
Exactly.
there you go.
Don't mess with Holly. Don't mess.
And we've got a great
Don't mess with
council.
Sanibel.
Exactly.
So and
Yeah.
I always want to say that no one does this alone.
Right.
And
Yeah, well,
and what I have stated from the day I became mayor, that we are a council of 5. We are 5 votes, and you've got an extremely strong council that we can even agree to disagree, and we do.
Yeah.
But at least we do it respectfully. And when we make that vote, we move on. And I can tell you,
Let's give
everyone's
a mention
working.
to the other 4.
Pardon me?
Let's give a mention to the
Richard
other 4.
Johnson.
We have Richard Johnson, who is our vice mayor. Dr. Scott Crater is a council member. John Henshaw is a council member. And Michael Miller is a council member. And they are Sanibel devoted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Each and every one of them, as is the staff. And if I can, I know people kind of get sick.
No, go
thank you,
for
thank
it.
you, thank you, Train. But I cannot tell you the dedication that we have seen of this staff going through what they're going through. They have to answer the phone calls, and they have to be there. They are there 24/7 if they need to be. And at the very beginning, we all have been 24/7. I'm still 24/7. I go to bed thinking it's something, and I wake up thinking of something. But we're very lucky to be in the hands that we are, that are really Sanibel positive.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I
that's
just think
awesome.
if you come to Sanibel, which the millions of visitors that come, we have a Facebook group that people just write in. It just, I think they said it. They always say it's our home away from home. That's what they consider it, and
Everybody
it
owns
just
a piece of it some way.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. People carry it in their heart.
Yeah.
Once you come to visit, you never forget it, and you want to protect it. So
They do.
yeah.
Fantastic. So obviously it's too hard to say what the future holds. Sanibel obviously is going to be different forever, and I'm sure, you know, just as this area is, and you know, there's been damage that, you know, changes that can't be put back. So, but we're optimistic. I hope, obviously, you are. But
I
what
am.
what do you see as a timescale to where we can get back to, let's just say, a variant of normalcy? You know, so where we could
But we do have one date. We know that we're going back to the island on,
January.
or outside people are going to be allowed on
Will
January.
be January
1st, is that
2nd.
correct?
Yep.
Outside people is the wrong word. But
I can correct that, because I think what the correct terminology, and we've got to be really careful what we're saying, is that we are lifting the requirement for only pass holders to be
Right.
allowed.
And that'll
on
be
our-
January 2nd.
And we're looking at January 2nd.
Okay, looking at.
And that has been stated to the public.
Okay.
And really, we're getting a lot of input in both directions.
Yep.
right.
And I understand that. I see both sides of what people are looking at. What we have under, you know, Dana and other stakeholders. So, you know, there's been criteria that there were benchmarks. It's not like, hey, this is the date.
Right.
That never came up. Let's remember it. At January 2nd, we will have been 3 months
Right.
of restricted access. And that restricts other contractors, handyman, families helpers, volunteers, you know, recovery people coming back on the island. So we looked at the criteria, and the criteria that was looking at is, you know, number one, you know, health and safety. We've got the police presence there. Debris cleanup was, you know, really one of the big drivers, because as you all have been out there several times, you've seen the debris and how many pushes that we've had to have.
Yeah.
So there was a number of, if it is at 80% cleared up and you can get to the roads, you know, safely. We can let waste management come back and do their jobs without, you know, impeding the progress. That was a big deal. Looking at that East Gulf
Bridge.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
East
the East
Periwinkle
Periwinkle.
I called
Periwinkle
it
Bridge.
that because you had to go down East Gulf to go
and
around it.
exactly. It's like the new route.
Yeah.
So that has been finished. We had hoped that it would be finished at Thanksgiving, but unfortunately we had another little storm called Nicole.
Right. That's right.
That we had to kind of hunker down and just, you know, be prepared for. So I will tell you those safety from our Sanibel Captiva fire and rescue, the police. Another big one is making sure LCEC could get the poles up, get our energized properties, as many as could be energized. Now let's realize 100% is not going to be a goal that we can look at, because again, if you look at our waterfront properties or homes that were demolished, that waterfront properties, meaning the resort housing districts, they can't energize for a while as they're anticipating, you know, what the damage is. So that was another factor.
So a lot of thought went into it.
It has, and we've been very open in our, you know, people are asking at every meeting, when is the bridge? And they say bridge is going to be open, but let's just remember,
It's a limited
it's
capacity.
the limited restriction on the passes.
Right.
And our pass system, when you think about it, you guys have lived here a long time, you know, our hurricane passes have been like, okay, you get 2 for your residents and you get 2 for your businesses.
Yep.
And this is morphed in because of, again, as something we're going to learn about, the magnitude of the needs that are coming on the island. And you've got to understand these contractors only get so many passes. So we're limiting the recovery as well.
Right.
And after, you know, we're still taking the input. If this criteria is not met, then, you know, council and the city manager will be the first to say, okay, we haven't met these benchmarks that we've set out, but right now we're pretty much on target for those.
Okay.
And also you got to look at, you know, the school's going to be, you know, hopefully coming back online
So
in-
currently
at
the
the end of
school's down
January.
in Estero.
Yeah,
Is,
San Carlos Park.
San Carlos
San
Park,
Carlos
yeah.
Elementary has shared space with us.
Yeah.
But the superintendent, they've been working on the school and getting that, and a lot more families are coming on. The teachers are going to be coming back, and this is about our community. And then, let's talk about some other things. Businesses. We have very limited businesses, but we need to, our commerce is important to our community and
Yeah.
what that means as well.
Yeah.
And a healthy community is residents, businesses, and everything that goes along with it. And then we've got the access to Captiva. Captiva had not been impacted the way we were.
Right.
Right.
So, although we control the pass system, and that's an agreement that we have with Lee County, we've got Captiva that is ready to accept. So, that is, deterring them
How
from
do you
being able to
incorporate it?
do
Yeah.
Right.
their
So
business
it
as
was
well.
a tough decision, but
and very thoughtful one, and
Yeah.
we're still analyzing everything along the way.
gotcha.
So it's these decisions aren't easy.
Right.
Yeah, no,
None
I
of them
think
are.
the businesses, I think, as a business owner myself, I think the businesses have had a particularly tough time. I think, that a lot of us, we were insured with our business and we weren't covered by FEMA, but we didn't have flood insurance. We had every other type of insurance. Shame on us, but and the massive losses, and it's sort of one thing after the other. As you've said, we just come out of COVID, and then there's very little help for the businesses. So I hope that changes down the road, and it's nothing to do with you. It's just something that I hope happens, because I think the business are imperative to get the island back to.
Which goes back to the Sanibel plan. The Sanibel plan is basically you don't want chains, so we have these mom and pop businesses that are not backed up by, we're not Starbucks. We don't have corporate headquarters
to
that
come back and
are
so
helping us. So
Right.
I think that's what the point you're trying to make is.
Yeah, it's hard for a small business, a genuinely independent small business, to ride through massive financial disaster as well as everything else that's going on. And this, for the small businesses on the island, I speak for all of them, and we've done this back to back. It's been the, I don't want to go through them all,
Oh,
but it's
I
just you just
understand.
start recovering from one, and then another one happens.
Right.
So
And I feel for you.
hopefully that gets addressed somewhere down the line.
Well,
Don't know
and
who by, but
Well, and I think, what we did pretty quickly is we said, okay, let's figure out how businesses can work unconventionally.
Right.
Because we're going to be in an unconventional world for a while. So food trucks.
Which I
Right.
just saw Hucksters.
Yep. So Hucksters, they were the first
First one,
licensed
yes.
food truck that came out today. I know there are others in the queue as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, how can we accommodate that? Now, we wanted to make sure that it was our Sanibel businesses that had the
Right.
first opportunity.
Good.
And more are getting ready to open. You're seeing life every day. I'm going through the neighborhoods and I'm seeing, Christmas decorations, or their landscapers are mowing the brown lawn. And it's,
Yeah, no, it's good to
it's
see.
starting, we're starting to live, and we need to continue that momentum. And many people had the opportunity to get contractors early on, but many people haven't. And I get calls from contractors that'll say, I'm not going to go through this process and then wait in line for restricted access and have 3 people. I've got enough. Look at Southwest Florida.
Right.
There's enough work all around. So
Right.
these people that might not have had the opportunity need to have that same opportunity that others had, because
which-
we are in recovery.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And it's
for
going
sure.
to be inconvenient. But we chose to live on a barrier island. We chose to work on a barrier island. And the divisiveness of these issues need to come together as a community rebuilding and
Yeah.
get it out of the way and say, you know what, we're all hurting, but how can we all help each other?
Right.
And a couple of, a comment, because I know we made that that notice on last Tuesday's
Yep.
meeting. And during that last Tuesday meeting, my phone started blowing up because FDOT was doing work on the Causeway. And that ended up being for 2 days. There were notices that were sent out, but that work,
Traffic
that boring
jams.
had to be done. So these are the inconveniences. I don't know if you lived here when the Causeway was being
Oh, yeah.
rebuilt.
Oh,
we
yeah,
did.
for sure.
Yes.
I did.
We did too.
I
We
had
were
to
going on it
time.
daily.
Yeah, I had to time my day
20
to
mile
take
an hour
my
speed
kids,
limits.
to
Yeah.
get on island. And let's remember, the ones that are taking their kids to school are going across the traffic. going against the traffic.
Right.
And I know as a mom, I understand what they're saying, but we've got to have that progress continue. And again, we're checking those benchmarks to see how they work. But the bridge work, it's going to be about a year, and we know that there are going to be inconveniences. What did we learn? We learned, okay, we need to get in touch with FDOT and say, hey, give us a couple of days so we can get that out, so we can do signage, all of that, so we can protect that. And another thing about the January 2nd date that everyone's is holding it and looking and saying, okay, I'm coming back and I'm going shelling. Let's understand that our amenities are not able to be opened. Our beach parking, there's no beach parking. It's washed out. Our beaches,
huge troughs
know if
going
you've been
through
on the
there.
beach.
Yeah, we did.
But those beaches are severely impaired right now.
We have big gullies, don't we?
So we've got to get all of that up. We've got to get certain beaches that might be able at some point to accept, but that's not a January 2. This is about recovery.
Right. So bringing more contractors on to help people rebuild.
Helping.
So anybody out there in the community that thinks they want to come on January 2nd, just hold off.
Right. And we, everybody else has done it successfully. Like I told you, I just came up Davis Boulevard for the first, Davis Drive or Davis Boulevard. It brought tears to my eyes, but you don't see that road restricted.
Right.
And Fort Myers Beach.
Yeah.
I have talked to them. I've talked to Mexico Beach. I have talked to where there's wildfires out in Colorado. I've talked to the FDEM, our Florida Department of Emergency Management, Kevin Guthrie, who is an amazing resource for our island. And that partnership through the state has been just second to none. Dana goes right to Kevin on the needs, and they've answered everything. And I said to him respectfully, sir, have you seen any other community that has continued to restricted access? And he said, no, about 3 weeks. So it's something to think about as we're also having our legislative priorities and our asks. We've got a lot of requests for our legislature.
Right.
And we need to get the work done for it.
And then back to the toll, because everybody's still confused about that. January 1st, the toll goes back into effect, and that is by Lee County. So it's nothing to do with I know everybody's like, some people are up in arms saying, why is Sanibel making tolls for people? But it's not.
And I think Lee County has been extremely conscientious of, again, it will have been 3 months, in making sure that those are waived. Understanding it also gives people, we still have to get our transponders. Those bridges still have to be paid for.
Correct.
So they have really been conscientious in that decision making as well on behalf of everyone that's going across.
Right.
And at a certain point, it's kind of like free food. We had a lot of free food that was great on the island, but then you want somebody to sell an ice cream or have a sandwich or have Jerry's.
You got sick of barbecue.
And that was it was amazing, and we appreciate because we needed those. But then it's a hand up, and we want our businesses to get back and be able to thrive as well. Because I'm worried about all of you.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. I think it's a good positive way forward. I think, and hopefully things are coming back.
No, they are coming
They
back.
are
Not
coming back.
Yeah,
What do you mean, hopefully?
Yeah, come on, we're going.
I don't know if you saw that article. It was kind of funny from the New York Times, and it was written about should people live on a barrier island.
Oh, I did read that.
And my new war cry is I am impossibly optimistic.
Good.
Because I don't know
love
that
it.
I don't know that they meant that as a compliment.
No, they totally did not.
No, they didn't.
No.
But you know what? I'm getting a T-shirt.
I was
made,
gonna say.
and I say that every time I can because we have to be optimistic. And our community. The world is going to watch this community just be something that is going to be, again, world renowned, but now at a level that it's going to be a benchmark for other communities to look at as we look towards resiliency and our community and being able to live with nature and make sure that we're able to do that for a long time to come.
Love it.
I think what you could do after you retire, you could maybe sell your story and they could make a sim program out of it for future mayors, so you go through each scenario. First you have COVID, then you have a hurricane.
Training simulator.
Then you crash and burn.
See these lines?
Yes, we've all got them.
But you know what? They're worth it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and you guys are
For
part of it too.
Sanibel.
Seriously, yeah.
Okay,
No,
Max, have you got some trivia
All right,
for
here
us?
comes the trivia, Holly.
Okay.
All right,
Close
pass
this
out the
out.
paper.
I'm nervous
I've been,
now.
Yeah.
I wrote on mine.
Be easy on me.
All right. I tried
love-
to avoid the Hurricane Ian trivia as it gets quite morbid. So we're going. We're starting with some general Florida trivia.
Okay.
So
We don't know what Max is going to ask. So,
this is just general Florida trivia.
is this something you learned in 4th grade?
This is something I learned 30 minutes
Are
ago.
we
before
smarter
the
than a
episode
4th
started.
grader?
Orange juice is the official state beverage of Florida. It was made in what year? 4 years after the Sanibel Causeway was built.
So, orange juice was made 4 years after the Sanibel. What?
No, orange juice was made to be the official state beverage of Florida.
66?
In what year?
1966?
Oh, don't shout out. You
Don't
gotta
shout
write
out.
your-
Don't shout out.
Right,
We're writing it down.
right.
I think I
Write it down.
I might have
I might be wrong though.
We'll see.
4 years after the
The
Sanibel
Sanibel Causeway was completed.
Okay,
Okay.
I got it. I got it.
My bad.
That's all right.
I'm
You're
usually
like
a
the
rule
kid.
follower.
I was going to say, don't you know you have to raise your hand in school? Go
All right.
All right, I got it.
on,
Well,
Max.
you
This
said
is not-
1966?
I said 66.
This is not influenced by Holly at all, but 1971.
I put 1967.
67 is the answer. So 63, the Causeway was
built.
completed.
Hey,
completed.
that
Yeah.
was what
There
you
you
got.
go.
There,
Okay.
that stumped you.
Completed.
Okay, all right.
So I kind of won on that one
right.
too.
Yeah,
I started.
okay.
Oh, you
Oh.
got to give her 1/10 of a point, Max.
Yeah, 1/10 of a point to Holly.
Okay.
All right.
I'm nervous.
No.
We've
It's
talked
not
a
like
lot.
anybody expects you to know the answers, Holly.
All right. To celebrate all the great things that the city of Sanibel has done, tell me what year Sanibel was incorporated.
Oh, that's easy.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, it should be.
All right, Mom, you go first.
1974.
Dad?
1974.
We will be celebrating 50 years in 2024.
2024. There you go.
Yay,
Across the
one
board.
across the board.
I guess we did talk about that 50-year anniversary earlier in the
Yes,
episode.
It's on the little sign as you come across.
All
Incorporated.
right,
Got it.
our
That
first
one
our
wrong.
first hurricane question.
Okay.
How
It's
many
actually our
questions
last
do we
question
have?
as well. We have three this week.
Okay. So I have one. No, I have two. Dad and Holly.
I have
Oh,
two. I have
two
one
and
and a
two.
10.
Yes,
Yeah,
one and a 10.
That, much,
Yes.
that puts you in second, Holly.
Yes.
Please know.
All right. The Sanibel Lighthouse famously lost one leg in Hurricane Ian. How tall is the Sanibel Lighthouse?
Ooh.
Okay.
Closest wins, by the way.
Which, if anybody hasn't seen, there is a wonderful video with you by the lighthouse, the SOS, Save Our Sanibel video that you're in, standing by the lighthouse. It's a wonderful video. It's very moving and impactful. And so check that out. Is that on your website or is it the chamber website? I
So
think.
when I get this wrong, I'm okay.
Yeah,
Your sins have been cleansed.
Thank you.
All right, Holly, you go first.
I put 280 feet.
I put
That's not it.
98 feet.
98 feet.
I put 107.
Mom takes it.
Ah,
Oh, 98 feet.
Oh, I meant that.
You're not a
All right,
cheater,
Mom,
too.
you just
are you,
take this
Holly?
episode.
Just
So
when
how
it-
silly was that as an appraiser?
I know it's the last thing on the list, but just really quickly, any plans on the Sanibel? Has it even been discussed yet? Rebuilding the lighthouse or the house?
Not rebuilding the house,
Not
but
the houses or
the park, I guess.
yeah.
The actual lighthouse itself, that is going through the process right now. So they just kind of put on the semi-permanent cast. And,
Okay.
you know, I love to say cast because when we have a cast, that means it's mending.
Yeah.
As far as the cottages, at this time, you know, we have so many priorities.
Yeah.
I did think
that you know that has not been discussed, but I
Okay.
know that this potentially, and remember the Coast Guard actually operates the lighting itself, so we are in hopes that we could get a lighting soon to celebrate that.
I can't wait.
Working forward on the lighthouse because
Okay.
the city does own the lighthouse structure.
I
Right.
thought it was bought for $1 from the Coast Guard,
Coast
was it
Guard.
not?
I just said 280 feet, so don't ask me a dollar.
I heard the leg was found. Is that correct?
That's
The
correct.
leg was
Yes,
found, and it is
yes.
being replaced, or are they using a different leg?
I'm not sure if they're using that as a mold for the new one, but many of the pieces were found right there, about 3 feet underground, and they also found the original survey marker as well.
Oh, wow.
No way.
And
I
then, of
remember
course,
seeing
we're
that one.
collecting all of the bricks
Archives.
and everything. We've secured pretty quickly. We realized anybody that could get to by boat, we didn't want to announce it. We knew they were probably coming and looking at some memorabilia because it touches so many
Right.
people. So we
Yes.
secured and
Oh,
had them
good.
gather
Yes.
everything they could from the oil house and the cottages that was
Sweet.
there.
Awesome.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank
Anything else you want to say?
Yeah,
Closing thoughts?
Thank
What's your
you.
impossibly positive? What are you?
I am impossibly optimistic.
Put
There
it
we
on
go.
a t-shirt.
IO, and just thank you guys, and we're here whenever you need us to give an update. We want to make sure people get the accurate information.
Yeah.
We know that a lot of people can get on tangents or Monday morning quarterbacks that haven't touched a ball, and we appreciate everybody's love for it. But let's make sure we know the facts so we can
Agree.
get them out.
Great to have you
Got
on,
it.
and we
Yep.
might take you up on that.
Yes.
Holly. Thank
Yeah,
you so
thank
much for
you.
taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us, and hopefully we'll see you again.
My
Not
pleasure.
too
Our
distant
pleasure.
future.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.